Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Masti with Satvik Saini. Tonight, I have a very special guest, all the way a homie from Nawa, Colorado, Connor Mulshine. We went to high school together, played tennis, kind of together. We weren't on the same team together, but I was on JV. I used to suck back then, and Connor was on varsity, and we played ball here and there. So we got to know each other after high school. Connor, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me, Satvik.
Dude, first things first. Denver Nuggets, let's go, baby.
Yep.
Walk me through that game. What are your thoughts, Game 7?
First of all, I want to show off my Jokic T-shirt jersey here. Got it for Christmas last year, and
I love it.
yeah, just pumped to be here today. I can't imagine a better day to be talking to you about basketball. I couldn't sleep for a while last night. It took me a while to fall asleep because I just had so many thoughts racing through my head, so many takes to fire out today. I feel like it was amazing, and we'll get to in a second. We'll talk more about the game, but I feel like what was so interesting about that is basketball. I feel like once you get to the playoffs and late in the playoffs, you feel like you know who's going to win most of the series, and so there's usually not a lot of like crazy things that happen this late in the NBA season. It's usually like the Warriors or LeBron's winning. So I think last night was like one of the bigger NBA upsets that I've seen in a while, and so I feel like it affected so many things. Like it affected the Nuggets so much, the Clippers so much, the Lakers, like the West as a whole, the legacies of all these players. So we got a lot to get to, but yeah, amazing game.
No, that's a great point because NBA is usually not scripted in a way, but that's why a lot of people like March Madness or something like that more than the NBA because they always know the teams that are going to come out. And I feel like last season was kind of like that with Toronto winning in a way.
No, I agree, and I think that's why part of the reason why that was such a cool story is because I don't think anybody picked Toronto, and the Warriors finally went down. Although if the Warriors were healthy, maybe it's a different story last year.
Mhm.
But yeah,
But
go ahead.
so going on this, like Clippers were the number one favorite, odds-on favorite. Kawhi, a champion from last year, his first year with the team. Playoff George or playoff P came to the Clippers, and this team was like the spot odds-on favorite. I mean, I picked them to win too.
I did too. I did too.
So, how monumental is this in your eyes?
Even for the
Not only because the Nuggets did it, because we're biased because we're Nuggets fans, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
for NBA.
Yeah, like I said, I just think it changes the landscape of so many things. I think I don't want to count the Nuggets by any means. I think they have a shot against the Lakers, but I think
Mhm.
as a Lakers fan or as LeBron or as Anthony Davis, I think they're sitting there and they're probably like, first of all, laughing at their crosstown rivals, but also I think in their minds, their path to a title probably got a little bit easier because, like you said, I think the Clippers, most people probably had them picked to win it all. Um, so it changes, from that aspect. It changes, I think, both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Not their legacy necessarily, but I think it definitely, it definitely changes things a little bit. And again, I'm excited to talk about both of those guys later on. From the Nuggets, I think I was thinking about last night. Let's rewind 2 weeks ago to when the Nuggets, they did not show up in Game 3 against the Jazz, and then I think they got blown out again in Game 4, and they were down. They were down 3-1, as you know well. And I was thinking, like, man, there's a good chance they're not going to show up in Game 5, and they're gonna, they'll get blown out again, and things could get ugly. Like I was reading some Nuggets message boards, and people thought, Jokic wasn't trying, Mike Malone should be fired. People were mad at Gary Harris and Will Barton just for being hurt, I guess. I don't really know. Like people were so angry. And it kind of, I think things could have really gotten bad for the Nuggets because I think once and I thought in Game 3, I thought they did it looked like they almost quit a little bit. And so I think when a group does that, and if they had just dropped 4 straight games to the Jazz, I think that just stays in your psyche for a while. So that core group of players, it's tough. Coming back next season, if they face adversity, it's like, here we go again kind of thing. So the fact that they even, fought back from that in that series, but then to do it again, it's just crazy. I've never seen, almost the outlook for the franchise change so much in such a short period of time.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it, especially because you had a feeling if it went, I guess, if this or the Jazz series ended in 5, like you're
Mhm.
saying, it would have been a lot different. But as the series got to 6 or 7, we have been in Game 7s before. I looked it up. I was like, Jamal and Jokic have all their playoff series have gone to 7 games.
It's
They
crazy.
beat San Antonio in
Yeah.
7, lost the Blazers in 7. So they've been there before. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh man. But I still did not. I after the game one of Clippers, I was just like, man, the series is kind of over. I'll be honest. I was like, damn, that's what the Clippers can do. And let's be honest, is there a more weird team than the fucking Clippers? Like, is so good when they're up, but like so bad. Game five was a fluke, and then game six, I just and then watching game
Yeah.
seven,
So
did you not feel like it was just weird? They like you
it
couldn't.
was
I
super
was like,
weird.
when is the Clippers run coming? I was like, that's why. Like we were in the
I
group
know.
chat. You're like, don't jinx it, don't jinx it,
I know.
and people were.
Nobody say anything. Like, yeah, yeah.
I
So
was
at
like,
what point, I want to ask you this question. At what point did you believe that the Nuggets had a legitimate chance to beat the Clippers? And then at what point were you convinced that they were actually going to beat the Clippers?
dude, I'm not gonna lie. Before going to game seven, because we texted a little bit, and I gave the Nuggets, and I was dead wrong, but I gave them like a 25% chance. I just felt like game
Mhm.
seven, the more experienced team wins. I thought Kawhi has been amazing for the last year and a half, and he had a bad game, but so I don't think it was still going to the fourth quarter, like the 9 minute mark, and I was just like, Nuggets are gonna take this. I didn't say anything till then, but like, and the Clippers were so bad in the fourth, like historically bad. And
Yeah.
that was a true turning point for me in my. What about you?
Okay. So I think you gave the Nuggets more credit than I did because I think I was even more wrong than you were. I thought all series like the Nuggets pretty much had no chance. I'm gonna be honest. And then when they won Game 5, I was like, oh, that's fun. Like it's cool. It's 3-2 now. Like it's respectable to lose in 6 to the Clippers. And then they won Game 6, and I was like, maybe there's a chance, kind of. But at the same time, I was just convinced, like you said, I think the more experienced team and particularly the more talented team almost always wins out in 7 game series. I feel like, because I feel like everybody is playing at their highest level in Game 7. Like,
Mm.
if there's any chemistry issues, those seem to get fixed in Game 7 for a short period of time, just because, and the best players in the world like typically take over in Game 7s. It's kind of like give me the ball, like I'm gonna go put up 40 points. And that's what Jamal did last night, but that's not what I thought Kawhi and Paul George at some point were going to do that, but you never is weird. They never demanded the ball. They never looked like they were in, even a playoff series, much less a Game 7. I mean, it looks like just a regular season game to them.
Dude,
Um,
so I'm curious, what are your thoughts on? Did you think the Clippers were kind of just expecting, like it looked like the team gave up in a weird way, like no counterpunch, but do you
yeah.
think the Clippers were like, holy shit, like Kawhi, do something? And like they all took a backseat kind of deal?
Yeah, that could be. That could be. I kind of have, an interesting take on Kawhi. I don't know if you want to get into it now, but I think last year, like, I just don't think and I think you saw it last night and exactly what we were talking about, is he can't really be the emotional leader of the team. And I think with the Raptors last year, he was not that guy. The guy was Kyle Lowry. And they had I don't know, they had other guys that would step up, but I think when they were looking for kind of that emotional spark or something like that, this year, I don't think like Kawhi couldn't really deliver on that, I guess. Like you don't see teammates like drawing energy from him or anything like that. Um, and that's not to say that he's not an amazing player and not extremely talented. It's just that he
Mhm.
doesn't have I guess that leadership ability to, when things are down, like, hey, give me the ball. I'm going to score 2 straight buckets and we're going to get going. Like he never did that last night. And he didn't do it in the 2 previous games either, which is interesting. I mean, this wasn't a 1 game thing. Like this was 3 straight games of him, and not to mention like Paul George as well. Like neither one of them like just was like, all right, give me the ball. Like I'm gonna take over for 5 minutes and we're gonna settle down, that kind of thing. Um,
Interesting. So let's get into the Kawhi take then. So emotionally intelligence wise, like who would you put in that category and like leader wise? So you think he's not a good communicator to like to actually lead a team in that way?
yeah, so I think I just think he's a very much like lead by example, kind of a silent leader type guy,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like it can be extremely beneficial, but there comes a point when a team needs an emotional leader, and I just don't think the Clippers had it at all this year. I mean, I thought you think maybe Lou Williams at some point, or maybe Patrick Beverly at some point. Neither one of those guys really like provided that. I know Patrick Beverly's so annoying, but I feel like he can provide that sometimes for sure. Like,
Yeah, I
uh,
agree.
but yeah, I think the team kind of like you said was looking to Kawhi or maybe Paul George as well, and neither one of them could just really provide that spark. But yeah, it's interesting because some other stars you have that, and I think, and then some other stars maybe kind of lack that or aren't quite as that guy. And I think it's more of a personality thing rather than a critique of their playing style or anything like that.
Which stars would you say have that?
Uh, so I think LeBron has it, right?
Mm,
Like I think, if LeBron's down by 10 points in a game seven, if they're blowing a lead in a game seven, like he's going to get everyone fired up. He's going to get everyone ready to go, and he'll find, open shooters in the corner, or he'll, get a couple, layups, he'll bully inside, something like that. He's definitely got it. I'm trying to think. I think honestly Russell Westbrook has it. I mean, as we make fun of his basketball IQ at times, but I think he's definitely like that emotional leader for sure. Like I don't think you'll ever see a team quit that has Russell Westbrook on it. Trying to
I
think.
agree.
Chris Paul, same thing. I mean, you'll never see a Chris Paul team quit. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. So not like from the hoop perspective, but I think they have those guys who chirp quite a bit, like Harrell
Oh
and
yeah,
Bev.
yeah,
And those guys talk a lot, like talk more than they should probably. They act
yeah,
like they're warriors and they've like come off three straight championship runs, but
yeah,
I think they thought that by landing Kawhi, but I just think he had a bad game, to be
yeah.
honest. Not to say the blame is definitely on him though. He's the
Mhm,
guy and he has expectations this year.
mhm.
But I don't think he needs to be the emotional intelligence leader there. I just think he had a really shitty game. If anything,
Gotcha.
PG.
Okay, so
It almost felt like Kawhi was like everyone's energy was kind of low and they were gravitating in that sense. So Pat, Bev, and Harold could have stepped up, but Kawhi was probably like forcing it too much, if you know what I mean.
okay.
He's like, and then there
So I
was
guess
like bad shots.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess like I would ask you, like when it started to turn towards the Nuggets, and that was like late third, early fourth, and the Nuggets take like a 6, 8 point lead. Um, who are you looking to kind of like? I guess is that when you kind of expected Pat Bev to make like a big defensive play and like get the team fired up or something like that, or are you looking to the huddle on the sideline and see if he's getting in guys' faces and that kind of thing?
I, that I'm seeing, yeah, the huddle, like him
Yeah,
just getting talking the year off, like what Lowry would do at the
right.
Toronto Raptors, right?
Yeah,
Him, Harold, it's just they haven't really won much, and they showed really.
right,
And
right,
it's chemistry, like this was a great example of showing how much chemistry matters. You can't just throw superstars together
right.
and
Totally.
win, expect them to win. And
Yeah.
Nuggets have done this like 3, 4 years. They've grown up together in a
Hmm.
weird kind of way because they're all young. They're like our ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I expected Kawhi to ball out honestly, and he didn't, which
Hmm.
was disappointing. But I also think he just had a shitty game. But his playoff resume, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, Kawhi isn't really, because his playoff resume is pretty stacked.
It
So
is. It is.
that's why I'm a little confused about his legacy there. Like he should have
Yeah.
showed up, but he's also it's not like a situation where it's like Paul George is like 10th time doing this or
Right.
Harden, right?
No,
So it's
totally.
still that's where I'm a little
So yeah, I think that's the interesting thing. Like you bring up a good point is that this isn't Kawhi's, he isn't known for this and this isn't his first rodeo.
mhm.
That's why when we get to the East and start talking about Giannis, um, I give him a little bit of a pass. Not a total pass, but at the same time, like he's still young. He hasn't really, I think every great player, every superstar that leads teams need to lose in the playoffs first to learn how to win.
Mhm.
And the weird thing is, it's not like Kawhi is some 24-year-old guy. Like he's in his prime. He's been there before. Um, so that's why it was so baffling to me. And so I guess my take on the whole Kawhi thing in general, and where his legacy's at right now, is I think I think it's hard to really rate like a player among the all-time greats when they're still in their prime or haven't even reached their
Mhm.
prime yet. But I think he's like when I was thinking about this a lot today of like who would I compare him to, and I think at the age of 29, which he's 29 right now, he
Mhm.
reminds me of like D Wade in terms of where he's at in his career. Uh, and
Oh, okay.
right, like both had one incredible playoff run where they just put the team on their back, won a Finals MVP. And actually, I got some stats for you to back this up.
Let's hear
Um,
him.
so through basically this at this point in their career, so through their age 28 seasons, they both played almost an identical number of games, almost identical number of minutes played. They shoot 48 and 49% from the field. That's almost exact. D Wade he had scored 12,000 points. Kawhi scored 10,000. So D Wade's, has scored a little bit more. D
Mhm.
Wade's got about twice as many assists. Kawhi's got him in rebounds. And steals and blocks are actually both very similar. At this point in their careers, D Wade had been to 6 All-Star games. Kawhi's been to 4. And this is a weird stat to me, but Kawhi's 29 and he's finished as a top 8 in the MVP, regular season MVP, only twice so far in his career. whereas D Wade had 4 times. So I think, and that's not at all. I'm not trying to knock Kawhi at all. I mean, D Wade is an amazing player comp. I mean,
Oh
he's
yeah.
probably right around the top 25 player of all time. And I think that's where Kawhi's trajectory kind of is right now. I think, he could certainly win 2 or 3 more titles. He has the talent to do it, in which case, like, this conversation absolutely changes. But so far, I feel like right around 25 is like right, feels about right to me.
So
Do you think?
do you think he's overvalued currently, or do you think after coming off his Raptors run, do you think he's overrated going into this
That's
season?
I thought so. Yeah. I by no means hate Kawhi. Like, I think he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't root against him, but yeah, I think people had said that he had really taken the crown of best player in the world. I think after this playoff series, I think, like, it's definitely a question. Like, I would not say he's the best player in the world. I don't know. What do you think?
He's still a top 5 player in the NBA, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
But like
I agree. I agree.
I think he was neck and neck with Braun in my eyes, and
Hmm.
this put him down.
Okay.
He,
Yeah.
he's
I think
he's a
that's fair. Yeah.
definitive number 2 now. I
Yeah.
think for the last year and a half, if you had to pick a guy for a playoff series, you would go
Mhm.
Kawhi.
Right.
But now this 3-game, like, I don't want to call it a choke, but like not showing up or not willing your team to win, especially after a 3-1 lead,
Hmm.
I think he's definitely down a knock, even with 35-year-old LeBron.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think this was, yeah, definitely a tough stretch for him. And it's also interesting. I think we shouldn't ignore the fact that the Raptors lost him and didn't really add anybody in his place. And then they actually had a better regular season record this past year than they did with Kawhi. And then, you saw they almost got to the Eastern Conference Finals without him. I
Mhm.
think that's not nothing. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of speaks volumes to how good the Raptors like are even without him, and how good that franchise is.
Oh, okay, yeah. They have been discounted and underrated, but they still like regular season. I don't really care about this record as much, to be
Yeah. Okay.
honest. But
Okay.
and like the load management thing, yeah, that's like a knock against it. But like at the end of the day, who really cares about if
That's
the
an,
person's playing regular season games or not? And you'll never win the MVP because of that reason. And that's
yep.
to
And
him.
that's another reason why he reminds me of D Wade a little, because they both got those injury issues going on, like, early on in their
Yeah, that's a good point. So I like that comparison. And then Toronto,
yeah.
you're right. They are like Pascal Siakam really coming out on their own, but like I think there was a lot of hype around him. Toronto's team still doing as well as they did last year, and that's where I think they were missing a guy, a closer like Kawhi,
Totally. Yeah.
especially. And
I mean,
Pascal wasn't what the expectations put on him. He kind of underperformed this year too. Like Jaylen Brown shut him down,
yeah,
JT and the Celtics kind of shut him down. So still a
no
great
doubt.
team, still a lot of heart.
Yeah, totally. And Kawhi definitely put them over the top, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. He's the reason why they won last year. But it's interesting to see. You see what every time LeBron has left a team, that team wins 18 games the next year. Um, so it's interesting to see how good the Raptors franchise really is, like, and how good their team is, even though they don't have any superstars anymore. Um,
That's the reason I like that D Wade take is because by 28, D Wade had what the one ring with Shaq against Dallas, right?
yep,
2006. So
yep,
I'm really curious to see how Kawhi shows up the next 4 or 5 years. He really has, I mean, potential to
totally.
win, like you're saying, 2, 3 rings, and like I wonder what the Clippers will do next year. So
Yeah.
going off of that, where do you think the Clippers' next plan of action should be next year's? Obviously, it's obvious to me, but I think they should run it back for sure. But I
Okay.
think it puts a lot of pressure on them
Yeah.
because they can both opt out of this next season,
Okay.
PG and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kawhi.
No, I agree with you. I think they should run it back. I think there might be some tough conversations surrounding Doc Rivers,
Mm.
and I really like the guy, but yeah, I just think his reputation. I don't know. I think his reputation exceeds kind of his results a little bit. I mean, people talk about him like a top 5 coach in the NBA, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. I've never seen him in the finals. Oh no, I'm sorry. He won. He won with
No,
Boston.
no, he's
So
one.
that was it.
So
Yeah.
I think he's used that to catapult him into just the great coach category, and I think he's overrated. And I'm honestly a Celtics fan. Like I was a big fan. That's when
Right.
Celtics and Nuggets were my teams because of growing up in Boston. That's where I was like a fan during the shitty Paul Pierce era and the Big Three era.
Yeah.
But like Doc's team before KG and Ray Allen came won like 24 games
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Paul Pierce that year, and then he's the first coach to blow 3-1 leads. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Wasn't he the first coach to blow 2 3-1 leads?
Yeah, I think he was yeah, and he
And
just
then he blew
extended his own
another
record.
one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's bad. Like the Clippers, Lob City, they, and this also shows this is where I think Chris Paul is overrated
Yeah.
too. in the playoffs, he's a great, like, as a leader or whatnot. Like, you blew a 3-1 lead to the the Rockets where Harden sat on the bench for Game 5, but
Yeah.
that's another conversation. So I think Doc does need to go. Who do you think should come in and take the Clippers' reign, like as head coach?
That's a good question. I'm not necessarily advocating for Doc to be gone, but I think there's, that's definitely something that should be talked about.
Mhm.
In terms of coaches who are out there, I mean, Ty Lue's out there, and I don't know how good a coach he is either necessarily.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm trying to think who else is. Who I would grab is Billy Donovan.
Dude, that's what I was thinking.
I think that's a great. I mean, I can't believe the Thunder fired him. Right, they were projected to win like 25 games this year, and they almost made it to the second round of the playoffs.
Seriously, that was and Billy Donovan and PG have played before because I think
Sure.
Billy was there when PG was with OKC.
Yeah, he was. So I don't know. I wonder how that relationship is. But depending on if PG signs off on it, that might be somewhere to look.
I think Billy Donovan would be best bet. I think Ty Lue's overrated. He's been in the right place at the right time with the Cavs when he stepped in for David Blatt, and I think this will be another scenario which I think will end up happening.
Yeah.
Ty Lue taking over. But
Right.
all right, Connor, let's get to watching the Nuggets though, dude.
Okay.
Watching Jokic
Yeah.
was just such a pleasure. Like last night, I think it was the first game where I was like, holy shit, this guy can just the flow of the game and like how cerebral it is and how unathletic he looks is just crazy to me. Like the way he was just dictating, like no doubt Murray dropped 40 points and he's the one who kept us in the game. So I would compare him like game 6 Clay against the down 3-1 OKC.
Mm-hmm.
And then Steph being like the actual leader and Draymond. And that's who Jokic was last night.
Yeah.
And he's always been that.
Yeah.
Like the best stretch 4 or 5 in the league. So talk to me about Jokic and his numbers so far in output in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I think he's finally, hopefully, getting the recognition that he deserves. And I think the most kind of incredible thing about him is like Jamal Murray and most stars, especially stars that, like shoot a lot, they'll have off nights. But Jokic, I mean, he hasn't really had an off night in the playoffs that I can remember. Maybe, I don't know, I can't remember specifically him ever shooting below, 40% in a game.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember him ever having less than, 12 rebounds and 5 assists or something like that. I mean, every game it seems like he's a lock to score at least, 18 or 20, put up at least 10 rebounds and at least like 5 or 6 assists, it's just wild.
So, dude, close your eyes and close your eyes and imagine you listen to the stat line that Jokic put up yesterday.
Okay.
Who would you think of? Who would be the first player you think of with that stat line?
Honestly, the first name that came to mind was Russell Westbrook, but I want to caveat that with that does not include, if we're talking field goal percentage, then I got to change my mind. And I'd probably go with
Field goal. Yeah, we're including field goal percentage.
including field goal percentage, man. I would go LeBron.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wasn't he just like LeBron last
Yeah.
game, like facilitating?
Yeah.
The way he was controlling the flow of the game? Dude, at
Yeah.
one point I just thought he was like messing with him.
No, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you saw the pass, right? When he was on like the free throw line, he just threw it over his head to
Yeah.
Jamal. I was like,
It was unbelievable.
just having fun out there.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. I think he also knows he's really good at knowing like when he needs to go score and get a bucket, and other times like when he's just totally content setting up teammates and he's getting double teamed and stuff like that. He never forces it. He'll just find the open guy and
And that's what was so perplexing. Like, dude, I think Jeff, whichever of the Van Gundy brothers, I think he's a great commentator. I like listening to him.
yeah,
He's just like mocking the Clippers.
yeah,
And they're trying to double team Jokic, and Jokic was just his vision's too good.
yeah.
His
It's-
vision was so, and he always has these like 1 or 2, 3. He's like point, dude. He's a point guy. He's like a CP3 in an unathletic body.
Yeah. You're honestly right. Yeah, I mean I think the only thing you could knock him for is like occasionally. I think his defense has gotten better, but he's never going to be a dominant defender. But I think you can live with that.
So this is what I was thinking about, like how Warriors popularized the stretch 5 thing, where Draymond Green. What I always thought Draymond Green's annoying. I know he's kind of like Pat Bev. He talks a lot, but I think it's vital to the Warriors because he can do all those things. He can pass. He can used to be able to shoot. I don't know about anymore. Knock down a 3-pointer here and there, but like his playmaking ability, Jokic is that, but just better on so many levels. And I think we're seeing something similar with Bam down in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Like their
I see.
playmaking abilities with their passing abilities, Jokic is, and like I have no problem towards the end of the games where having the ball in Jokic's hands. So like talk to me about the stretch five and where Jokic ranks and how you see the Denver Nuggets progressing in the future. Like,
Okay, yeah, starting with the stretch five, I kind of like that. I've always thought of him, I mean, for the most part, I thought of him as just like their center, right? And they need a power forward out there. But now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, their best lineup was with Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, probably MPJ at the three, and then Jeremy Grant at the four, which is like kind of a small ball lineup. MPJ is a really tall for a three, but it's kind of that small ball lineup, I guess. It's just Jokic is just tall. But that really, I think in most games in the Clippers series, kind of those last three games where they closed it out, they went on runs mostly when that lineup was in the game. And so I think it's interesting that you bring up the Warriors and their small ball lineup with Draymond Green at the five, and I think it's a perfect comparison, really. And yeah, I think it seems to be that's what a lot of teams in the NBA are striving for, but that's such a difficult thing to actually accomplish because you need a player as talented as as I don't want to say as Jokic. I was going to say as Draymond, but I can't say anything nice about Draymond. But yeah, I mean, there's so few guys that are either big enough or strong enough to guard a big man, and can still play that five and get rebounds and bang down low, but still have like the vision and the passing ability and all that kind of stuff, and can shoot from outside. I mean, it's just such a rare thing that there are very few good like great small ball lineups out there, I guess.
so is that the lineup you're going with against Lakers?
I
How
think
did you do?
Oh, that's a good question. So I was talking to David, who was previously a guest of yours on this show yesterday, about how do they defend LeBron and AD? And my answer is I don't really think the Nuggets can, so they better make a lot of three. Because I'm thinking, who guards AD, like, first of all. And I guess you got to put maybe Millsap or maybe Jeremy Grant on him. And I just don't think Jokic can really, for long stretches, contain AD. And then I'm thinking, who's going to guard LeBron then? And I'm like, I guess maybe the other one out of Millsap and Jeremy Grant.
But I don't want Millsap out there for like 30 plus minutes, man. I
No, I
swear,
agree.
Jokic makes Millsap so good. Jokic makes Millsap a viable starter.
No, I think I agree with you. But I mean, who are you thinking? Who's going to guard just those two alone?
So I think because Vogel, I think did good experimentation with the Rockets.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're gonna go back to the AD at four
Okay.
and throw JaVale because they don't want AD coming in foul trouble because it's vice versa.
True.
With Jokic
Okay.
and AD. So I think
Yep.
JaVale and Dwight get some playing time, and
Yeah.
Jokic will eat him up. But I think that big lineup, AD, I think Grant on him, maybe Millsap coming in and giving him breathers, and then Craig on LeBron. I think
Okay.
Craig, you can't stop LeBron obviously, but
Yeah.
Craig can probably do a good of a job as anyone to slow him down. Not Millsap. LeBron would eat up Millsap for
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. See, Craig has not. I like last year the playoff run. I think Craig was awesome, and I felt really good about him on defense. But this year, I just haven't seen it quite as much. And to be fair, he first was mostly assigned to. He was playing a lot on Donovan Mitchell when Gary Harris was out, and Mitchell was just too fast for him. But then this last series, I thought Paul George and Kawhi it just seemed to be too big for him. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you might be right. Maybe you start out with Craig and then see where you go from there. The other problem with Craig for me is I feel like teams just don't guard him on offense. So, I mean, you're really playing 4 and 5 on offense.
That's a good point.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to take, some tinkering to see what the best lineup is. I might put, I mean, I don't know. Harris is tiny compared to LeBron, but maybe if you, emphasize help defense and put, Harris on LeBron to start to get him on the perimeter. And then, when he comes inside, try to have Jokic or somebody else ready. Man, Jokic guarding LeBron in the paint.
That's the thing where I think Lakers will be smart enough to realize from this Clipper series is just try to put Jokic in a lot of foul trouble because
totally.
if Jokic, which I suppose he won't be guarding LeBron or AD, he'll be the second line of help defense for both of those guys, and that's where I think you get a lot of ticky-tacky fouls, and LeBron will probably outmaneuver that. But on their side, who can guard Jamal?
That's a good question.
Who would they put on their front court or back court? Sorry.
I'm wondering if maybe they put Rondo on Jamal. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think they're good with either JaVale or Dwight on Jokic, and then maybe late in the game if AD, isn't worried about fouls, and put AD on Jokic. Because AD, reminds me a little bit like defensively, he's, pretty similar to Gobert, and Gobert did as good a job as you can on Jokic. So I think AD would be fairly effective at slowing down Jokic. I don't know about JaVale. I feel like that dude's gonna foul out in about 2 minutes against Jokic.
That's good for us. Honestly, if JaVale's on us, I would love that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But yeah, I mean, I would think they start with Rondo on Jamal for the most part, my guess.
So what's your prediction for this series?
Oh man, I hate that you're doing this to me. I had Clippers in 6 over the Nuggets.
Same.
So I hate picking against my team. Man, but I just can't. My head's telling me Lakers in 6 because it's LeBron, right? But my heart's telling me you can't pick against the Nuggets again. All right, let's go Nuggets in 7.
Ooh.
I don't think it's going to take a 3-1 comeback this time, but they'll pull it out.
So what do the Nuggets have to do, in your opinion, to have a shot with the Lakers?
The one thing that you just talked about is trying to figure out a way to contain AD and LeBron. And that also means, limiting LeBron's, passing to wide open looks in the corner, because, you can double LeBron and hold him to 20 points or something like that. But if he gets 15 assists to 3-pointers, then that'll absolutely kill you. So I think it's finding out like a good defensive matchup, or somehow how to defend those two and, limit them offensively. Another key is just something that I've noticed is, and I think it's because the Nuggets are such a young team, and they're not used to playing with the target on their back and being the favorites. And I think you saw that maybe last year a little bit, against the Spurs. They kind of struggled with them. And then this year, obviously with the Jazz, they finally were treated as like the favorites in the series, and they struggled at first. And then right when their backs are up against the wall is when they play their best, and they just start shooting freely, and all of a sudden they're flying around on defense and stuff like that. And so I think I don't know how to, hopefully that carries over. Maybe because, everyone's counting them out again, maybe they'll kind of play a little more loose and kind of play with nothing to lose. Because that seems to be, they're at their best ball when their backs against the wall, obviously.
For real. 2 straight series. And I agree with that, because I think them giving 2 days now, Friday, I think they have a good chance. And I think Lakers they have dropped game 1 in both of their previous series. And they come back to win 4-0.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good shot to, and I think they have to make AD beat them. The reason why I say that is because LeBron, we know him. Playoff Bron.
Yeah.
We know his resume. We know what he stands for.
Mm-hmm.
But AD hasn't really been put in a lot of pressure. Yeah, there was a lot of hype around the Blazers, but we realized they're gassed out. Dame didn't even play Game 5. The Rockets, it was just Harden ball, and then we knew how that experiment was going to go.
Harden and Westbrook in the playoffs, yeah.
But we had to. This is where you really have to test AD and make him take over for the games.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be more than okay if we can't have LeBron dropping 40 and then 15 assists and one of his huge stat lines.
Yeah.
If AD goes for 45 points and averages 40 every single game of the playoffs, I'll be okay with that, because we've forced AD to beat us.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because AD has never been to the conference finals, right?
What has AD done? He's definitely off the coattails of LeBron, and make guys like Alex Caruso or KCP hit at threes. And I think with pressure, those guys really crumble. Rondo's good, because Rondo's been there before, but that's what I'll think it'll take. So I'm also going.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm going Nuggets in 7.
Let's go. Love to hear it.
I'm not picking against them, dude. I had Clippers in 6 last round. I'm no. But this is one of those win-wins. LeBron, like you're saying, has to be happy with his road and how it turned out.
Yeah.
The Blazers, Rockets, and now the Nuggets.
Yeah.
For his eyes.
Yeah. For sure.
But dude, let's go to the Eastern Conference.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the Miami Heat. They've kind of been the Denver Nuggets of the Eastern Conference.
A little bit, yeah.
Underlooked, play well together, got a dog in them, have the fight, been down, I guess after the Pacers, they were huge underdogs against the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Knocked down the best team on that side.
Yeah,
the
killed
finals. Killed them. Terrible. Beat them, crushed them. So
Mm-hmm.
they are the underdog again. So walk me through that preview with Boston. And what do you think? What are your keys for that series, and who do you think's coming out?
Yeah, so I think I was thinking about that, and I haven't followed the East quite as closely as the West, just because the West fascinates me. The East, I think, Giannis was the storyline, but now that he's out, it's kind of like I don't think there's any huge storylines, I guess. But I think I'm gonna go with the Heat in the series, and the reason why is I just think they're better than like you said, they're kind of the Nuggets of the East, and I think people look at their roster on paper and think like, oh, there's no way they can hang with. I think most people are probably picking the Celtics, but I think the Heat just keep getting it done, and I think they have really good chemistry, a lot of underrated players, and good defense as well. And yeah, the Celtics. The key's going to be containing Jason Tatum, because he's definitely kind of taking his game to the next level and is almost kind of knocking on the door of superstardom. And I think if he has a great series here and leads the Celtics to the finals, like he'll be considered kind of in that conversation of top 10 players in the league. So I think slowing him down is going to be the key, and make someone like Marcus Smart beat you on offense. But yeah, I think I'm excited to watch. Honestly, I think the Heat are they're a more interesting team. But I also think they're just playing so well right now that I'm going to take the Heat. And I could really see it going either way. But I'm going to take the Heat in, let's say 7 also. Let's say 2 7-game series.
I also think this series will go 7, but I think Boston will win out.
Okay.
Dude, Tyler Hero, man, those guys have been balling. Like, I think defensively, Brad Stevens over a 7-game series, especially in the bubble, negates some of those advantages. And I think home court here. And I think Boston, just their ability, especially if they have Gordon Hayward back, which I was reading reports, he will be back sometime during ECF. So sometimes during the series. And they just got 4 guys who can drop 20 points.
Yeah.
Like, that's just hard to stop. Like, who's going to stop? And their wing defenders are good. And I think a lot of the games will come down to a dogfight like it was last game.
Yeah.
So that's my pick. Boston 7, and then Nuggets in 7. So that would be the final. Yours would be Nuggets Heat, which would be a crazy fun final. So what would be the craziest combination of final for you, in your eyes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. My only problem with Nuggets versus Heat, as a Nuggets fan, I would love it, but I think most of the NBA, like casual NBA fans, would just be like, "Who are these two teams?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I don't think I think. I mean, I hate to say it because like I said, just as a small, I usually root for the small market teams, but I think Lakers Celtics would just be the most like interesting in terms of these are two of the best franchises, and I guess the two best franchises in the history of the NBA. I think you have kind of the king right now, like LeBron, against Jason Tatum's kind of the young. I think the Celtics are more of like that young team trying to
take the throne
and be that next dynasty. Whereas, LeBron in himself is just kind of the dynasty of the last decade or so. So I think that'd be interesting, seeing Tatum, guarding LeBron guarding Tatum. Would probably be, from a casual fan perspective, that's probably the most interesting. But I don't know. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. Lakers Boston would be such a great storyline. It'd be the young star guy trying to be LeBron's footsteps. Because I mean, people are comparing him like Kobe, young Kobe, and whatnot. His footwork, the way he can score.
Yeah.
That'd be throwback. I mean, the 2010s. I mean, we had those 2 finals, Kobe versus KG in them.
Right.
That'd be fun. The funniest part about that would be Rondo would be playing for the Lakers, and if he wins as the Lakers, man, that's the biggest plot twist.
That's
true. I remember how much Rondo used to dick on LeBron, the overall Lakers. And it's just so funny to me that he's playing with them and potentially can win this year.
That's so true. Yeah, and I was gonna say LeBron against the Heat would be interesting too, but I don't think the Heat have that many players left over from the LeBron years, so I don't think it wouldn't feel that. It'd feel crazy if LeBron was playing the Cavs or something, but not really the Heat. I don't know.
That'd be interesting because it'd be Iggy, I guess, guarding him again, and Iggy's guarded him for a bunch of those finals matches with the Warriors, and so there'd be some history there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think the NBA can lose with any of the matchups now, but I guess the small market one, as much as it hurts, you're right. The NBA is a small market team.
Yeah.
And LeBron, I mean, stars do pull. So.
Yeah.
Also, the Kobe storyline.
True. Yeah, that's true. That'll probably be a lot bigger if the Lakers make it to the finals and all that. I'm sure that'll be mentioned constantly. Yeah. The one thing I want to point out is how lucky we are just in the NBA right now. looking ahead to the next several years. And it started with the Warriors kind of dynasty almost, with KD leaving. And I don't know about you, but this season and this playoffs has been so much more exciting and interesting to me than like the last 3 or 4 years. Because the last several years, it was kind of, it felt like you were just waiting for, okay, LeBron's going to win the East and the Warriors are going to win the West. And it's going to be a crazy finals matchup. But until then, it's not that interesting. And this year, it's like, the Heat and the Nuggets are showing you that like really any team could pretty much win. A lot more parity.
Dude, I like that. So I want to get your take on, this is a twofold question. Do you think the bubble allowed the Nuggets to do what they did, 3-1 comebacks twice, and the quality of play because they're not doing these huge-ass travel times for the overall bubble?
Yeah, I think the bubble definitely leads to more parity and gives the underdogs a better chance. I think, let's say the Nuggets were down, and the whole series would have been different if there were, true home court advantages. But let's say the Nuggets are down 3-1 against the Clippers, they would have had to go to LA and win that game, which is a tall task. And then, and then coming back home, game 6, but then to go to LA and win in game 7 too. They would have had to beat LA 2 out of 3 times on the road. I think it's, and I love it, honestly. I think it's my take on the bubble from the beginning. It's like, this is how basketball is played 99% of the time, right? Like you're just on a court. There's always a home court or anything like that. Like, it's just like, here's a ball. There's no fans, like just go get a bucket. So I think, I think it's just awesome. I think it's interesting. And I think parity has definitely increased. Any team can truly win any series when there's no home court advantage. And I hadn't thought about, the quality of play aspect of it, but you're probably right. I think the only complaint I'd have is, like you said, when the Nuggets got us, just one day off in between a 7-game series and the beginning of the next series, I think they could have done a better job with that. The quality of game 1 Nuggets Clippers was not particularly high, but it has been awesome. You haven't seen a lot of teams just get totally blown out or anything like that. There's been a lot of close games, I feel like.
Yeah, besides the Rockets, but that's a different point.
Of course, that goes without saying.
No, for sure. Like against the Utah series, we would have had the home court advantage for the last 3 games there. And I just think they're well rested. So this is why, dude, did you read the article about the Clippers saying a lot of their players just couldn't string together 4 stretches without being tired?
Yeah.
It's like, you guys load managed all year, and if anything, the Nuggets should be more tired. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out. Like, if it was in Denver at high altitude, like, I would get it. But, like, it made no sense to me. I don't know. Do you think it's load management? Do you think load management was part of the reason for that? Or do you think that was just some cop-out kind of bit?
I don't think so. I think that's just a shitty excuse, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Whoever was saying that. Because you should be fresher. It's playoffs time. You're expected to go out and ball.
Totally, yeah.
Especially in the bubble.
Yeah, in game 7, I don't want to hear it. Yeah, you're right. No excuses.
But I like your take about the 99% of basketball is played like this. So it's basically we're getting like the purest form of ball.
Yeah. It's like, I got my 4 guys, you got your 5 guys. Like, let's go play.
I like that. Well, Good games coming. Connor, we're approaching the end of our convo. Give me some final takes or tidbits of some things you want to stand out for this season. Some things you want to see go with the remaining 4 teams.
Okay. I want to see the Nuggets win, and that's it.
And any other final thoughts?
I think the last thing I would say is I think we should just appreciate where we're at in the NBA right now. You look at the West and, players move around teams all the time, but going into next season, we could potentially have the Lakers with LeBron and AD. We have the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George, with the Nuggets with Jokic and Murray. We got, this Harden experiment. We have Damian Lillard and the Blazers. We're going to have Zion and Ja Morant coming up. Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are interesting. There's just so many storylines, and there's just so much interest. And not to mention the Warriors are coming back too.
Ooh.
I can't write them off. The 10 seed in the West next year is going to be unbelievably good. And I think we're going to see a lot more parity also, because I think the 8 seed next year, the 8 seed next year is going to be like the Utah Jazz. They're going to be a really good team. And so I think we got to appreciate how balanced the West is right now, where it wasn't, several years ago. And then the East is just not that interesting, but we still have like the Giannis, we have the Simmons and Embiid combo. We got Boston's up and coming. The Heat are an interesting team. So I think it's really cool to be watching the NBA at a time where there were so many superstars, some like old and kind of, maybe close to the end of their careers, and some like young up and comers, but also so many interesting teams and some interesting duos. And I mean, there's probably right now you could probably pinpoint 10 teams that win the championship next year, which is just super rare for the NBA. We haven't seen that in a long time.
Which is crazy. It will be a fun season. I'll be very curious to see how the bubble and this whole experience impacts teams moving forward for the next year.
No doubt.
Well, anyways, Connor, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciated it. It was a pleasure having you on. And as always, I'll have this episode out on all platforms, so please check out and follow Connor on all social media. He's pretty active and has some fire takes. And thanks again, dude.
Sounds good. Thanks, Satvik.